The Kingdom of Bahrain enjoys a strong investment environment, supported by legislations that protects the rights of its investors. Bahrain also enjoys a strong human capital that improved itself on the international level, especially through the DHL and ITU indicators. Bahrain made its way through world classifications such as Internations and Expat Insider, which showcases Bahrain to be the top at achieving expat stability and satisfaction. Our question for today is, what are the impacts of the economic indicators on the kingdom's regional and international classifications?
Yes, these economic indices or rankings of countries, I think, have become a very important way of evaluating the performance, the competitiveness of countries, and they're very widely used by investors, by analysts, observers, etc. So they are one of the key benchmarks that people refer to. Obviously, this is very much a growth industry. You have all kinds of rankings and indices out there. Some are more serious, some are quite frankly used for PR purposes, some are very general, some are quite specific. But the reality is there are a number of them that have been in existence for a number of years that are well understood by people. The methodology is clear. There is a lot of historical data. And these are things that people look at. Now, how do economic considerations, economic statistics come into them? I think economic factors are central because at the end of the day, most of these indices, one way or another, tend to be about economic development or the business environment, which I suppose is another way of looking at economic development. And the advantage of economic statistics, of course, is that they are easy to measure, they're easy to verify, and they tend to be more or less consistent across countries. But there are the other things that people look at. A lot of these indices use interviews or surveys, which of course tend to, in one way or another, reflect the economic environment as well. And some of them look a lot at regulations and more qualitative factors. Now, how has Bahrain in general performed in these international comparisons? I think the reality is that this has become a very contested marketplace. A lot of countries now recognize the importance, signaling value of these indices. And in many cases, there's a real push for reforms, for ways to improve the country's ranking. So staying on top is not as easy as it used to be. There was a time when Bahrain used to very much dominate these rankings in the region. I think today the situation is a little bit more mixed. But I think what Bahrain has demonstrated in recent years quite consistently is that by focusing on economic reform, by prioritizing the importance of overhauling its regulatory environment, it can send a positive message out there to investors by improving its standing in these indices. And I think the reality is region-wide and globally at a time when economic growth is not as sort of robust as it used to be, these regulatory factors are becoming much more important as a consideration on investors' minds. So while it is not smooth sailing or completely straightforward, this is a very important priority area, and it's one where work tends to pay off.
Downgrading of economies in the region was not just restricted to Bahrain. It basically included every single country in the region, including some of our richest neighbors. In my view, Bahrain has a source, a natural resource, I call it, that most of our neighbors don't have, and that's human capital. In Bahrain, we have a very highly educated young population. Education in Bahrain has been preceded most of the countries around us, but we need to kickstart it a bit more. Things to stimulate the Bahraini economy, given our small size and a lack of resources, would be mainly in the service sector. That includes tourism. It includes things like call centers because of the bilingual ability of Bahraini youth. But most importantly is the initiative that was launched in Bahrain about 2 years ago, the FinTech Bay. And that in itself is to stimulate the technology sector in Bahrain. In my view, would be a fantastic opportunity, not just to utilize the human capital that we have, but to move up the competitive advantage of Bahrain compared to countries around us.
Okay, the rating industry, normally they have their own criteria, which they have put certain standard on certain, with their own criteria, they put certain standard on the countries. And whether it is positive or negative, I think it has its own impact for the investment as well as bringing the investors, to the countries. As for Bahrain, I'm sure there are certain groups which are working on this, and they are very specialized in providing the informations and the data in order, to help Bahrain from time to time to improve their level from a stage to another stage. And these days, I think lately we've been rated as stable, which is a good sign for Bahrain. And hopefully, and in the future, this stage will be even better and better in order to compete on the international level.
The indicators in the economy, which goes around the unemployment rates, the price index, about the inflation, about the foreign currency reserves, all these indicators, when it is the rating companies, they look at the performance of a country like Bahrain. They look at how these sectors are doing, and the reports that comes out from that performance accordingly. The more positive they are, the more stable the outlook is, the better it is that Bahrain will become an area, a country that attracts investments and attracts business commercial.
Experts have agreed that the Kingdom of Bahrain is moving towards achieving the highest levels of classifications to be highly competitive on the international level, as well as achieve the goals of the Economic Vision 2030. You were watching A Business Question. Thank you for joining us.